Affordable housing helps us to honor what is asked of us in Scripture. That is, to love God and love our neighbor. And that's what I appreciate about MHCH. They put people in the center of the conversation and help build community.
My name is Jill Shook, and I am the co-founding director of Making Housing and Community Happen. We want to introduce you to some of the critters in our yard. So Checkers is somewhere in this yard. Oh, she's back over here. She's still once in a while laying eggs, even though she's 17 years old. And then
she likes to be cuddled.
She does love to be cuddled.
Whenever she lays an egg, she crouches down like this so we can pick her up and cuddle her.
Yeah.
It's really sweet. Jill and I met at the Palm Sunday Peace Parade 10 years ago. So they had people of faith, sometimes 100, 150 or more, gathering to march from the church down to the Paseo with peace signs in one hand and palm branches in the other. And that's where I met Jill.
That's right. If you listen in on conversations in coffee shops, housing often becomes, and the cost of housing becomes one of the conversations. It's so pervasive, and yet few people realize that there's something we can do about it. What we're doing is we're resurrecting hope, and we're giving people tools to know how they can be part of creating the change to bring affordability to their community. And so we have 7 teams that are all doing this in all different ways. There's a number of factors that contribute to the affordable housing crisis, but really in many ways it all comes down to politics. And I know that sounds kind of simplistic, but all affordable housing has to be advocated for. There's no law that requires it. The need is in every city, but here in Pasadena, it seems to be especially acute. We did have over 1,000 folks who were experiencing homelessness just over 10 years ago. And we've been able to see that decrease by 56% in the last 10 years, but we still have 527. It's something that God has put in our heart to have a sense of place and a home.
My name is Cynthia Kirby, and I work part-time at my church as an administrative assistant, and I do a lot of advocacy around solutions to homelessness. I generally say that my journey towards homelessness really began, in many ways it probably began in childhood, but most significantly started in about 1998. I was placed on permanent disability, Social Security disability. I just remember the heat and trying to find a cool place to be, struggling with chronic pain, always just kind of needing a home base. A lot of the support and things that had been out there had kind of dried up. And in terms of like places that offered motel vouchers, City of Pasadena had closed their wait list for Section 8. So any avenues of service and assistance did not seem to be there.
The only way you can really end homelessness is through what's called a rental subsidy. You cannot expect people who have experienced homelessness to have enough income to pay the full rent. That enables what's called permanent supportive housing, which is what ends homelessness.
I remember in my 10 years of homelessness learning about the inclusionary fee and learning that new apartment buildings had to have a certain set aside for affordable housing. That to me was hope. Those were things that Jill, that her group did, that we're responsible for. So to realize once I was housed how much advocacy went into all of the policy and legislative changes that made it possible for me to have a home. Yeah.
Cities all over California that have no affordable housing, even though the need is huge, because they're not aware that they can advocate for it. And they don't realize that it's not automatic, that you don't get it unless you advocate for it. I love Pasadena. Who wouldn't love Pasadena? It's such a gorgeous city. It's a historical city. It's known for its beautiful architecture, for institutions like Caltech and Fuller Seminary, but underneath this beautiful tree canopy, which we're also known for, is a lot of pain. That pain is interesting because it's translated into people that, especially around racial justice, have been displaced. A major freeway came through right into the heart of the thriving African American business district. Thousands have been displaced. So the North Fair Oaks Empowerment Initiative is a really amazing committee. I just love the people that are on that team. It started through the IMA, which is the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. It's the oldest association of African American pastors in this whole region. One year, God just began to stir in my heart. I'd been going to the IMA meetings for years and years, and I felt like God was saying it was my turn that year to create a resource fair. And so I asked if they might consider that, and they voted to allow me to do that. God was making it really clear that we would not do it for the community, but we would do it with and by the community. So that changed everything. We did 150 surveys. We began to find those treasures. Who are those people God is calling within the community to begin to create the change they'd like to see?
I am Gilbert Walton. I am a retired physician. MHCH, Making Housing Community Happen, is something that I became involved in very tangentially a few years ago. Jill Shook used to come and speak at our church about different events that were going on in this neighborhood. But what really sort of woke me up was a street fair that was held on Tremont. And when I went to that, I was really surprised with the vibrancy and the diversity of people who were there at the street fair that I didn't see much evidence of just in my coming to church and going home. And so I thought that, boy, there's an opportunity here for this to be a really vital, great, vibrant community.
Dr. Walton, I just love. He has such an amazing story to tell. He's gone through so much in his life as an African American. And he's not shy to talk about it.
Yeah, I think my first experience was housing injustice was what I was born into. You could divide my childhood into two sections. So there was this early housing I lived in until I was about age 7, very substandard housing, rodent infested. It was between two packing houses, a railroad track, and it was bordered on one side by a creek. that was flood prone, and I would subsequently learn was laden with E. coli and who knows, whatever. I don't think that anyone should have lived there, but we lived there as a result of, policy, codes on a local level, state level, obviously a federal level. But then again, when I was about 7 years old, we were able to move into a really nice community that had 2 bedrooms at least, an inside toilet, trees, grass. And then unfortunately what happened there was that our house was taken by a freeway that moved through, and so our house was claimed on eminent domain. Everyone deserves to live in affordable, secure housing. In New Hope Missionary Baptist Church, which I joined probably back in '88. I am a Sunday school teacher in the church, I'm a trustee, and I'm also on the deacon board. When I moved to Pasadena, African Americans constituted about 33% of the population. Now it's just under 10%. And one of the things that we saw happen is that many of our members were unable to afford to continue to live in Pasadena. I think one of the reasons that there's a difference between this area and other areas of the city, quite honestly, is the lack of investment. I think there are problems with safe streets. There are problems with violence in this community. And quite honestly, I think one of the reasons this community also was diminished was simply just racism in housing. Some of the city policies that moved significant communities of African Americans here has led to this kind of blighted area. We would like to see this part of the city beautified and not gentrified. We want to see green spaces, green trees, and we'd like for this community to progress in such a way that it will provide additional business opportunities for new businesses. I think that MHCH has been very critical in terms of kind of organizing the community, in terms of making their desires known. It's not this kind of top-down situation where we are deciding for the community what they want, but rather trying to poll, survey, ask the community what kind of things they want to have, and then trying to figure out how we can accomplish those things by working together. One of the successes is right outside of this church. We now have a traffic light that was installed there. This was quite a dangerous street to pass. Drivers can speed, quite frankly. So that was one of the things that we petitioned for, and that was done. And so I think that helped the community see that, yes, no, you can in fact get some of the things that you want. So what I've heard that this community was like before, I think it can be that again. One of the things that we've been doing on the North Oaks Empowerment Initiative is trying to create that affordable housing that has forced many people out to move. So we've been supporting those initiatives. We support churches in the area that want to do that. We ourselves have considered doing that on our property as well.
The Congregational Land Committee is dedicated to supporting religious congregations that are interested in building affordable housing on their land. And we help churches and other religious organizations come up with a viable, impactful, and mutually supported plan for affordable housing on their campus, and then also help them recruit a development partner that will execute a successful project on their land, and also, kind of cut them a fair deal. This was just kind of an idea. It just started with a lunch between Jill and me. Our firm was at that time very small. We do urban planning projects, urban design projects, and support congregations that look to build affordable housing on their land. There are many benefits and many reasons why congregations can consider building affordable housing on your land. The first thing that we always mention is that it carries out the command of Christ. It carries out the command to love our neighbor. There are, of course, other more practical reasons too. A common thing that churches are going through is that they have large campuses, large facilities that were built out many years in the past when they were much larger congregations. And the maintenance of all of that is a financial drain upon the organization.
I was shocked to find that 4,000 churches are closing every year. It's shocking. And many of these churches have property, and they need to figure out what to do with it. Developers see that, and they're going to churches. Some of them are reputable and are thinking about the best interests of the church, but some of them are just looking for economic opportunities. And they're going to churches and pitching a deal that sounds good to the church, but really isn't. So that's why we started this Congregational Land Committee with people of faith and conscience who are very knowledgeable, who can advise the churches.
Building affordable housing on your land does not mean you have to give away your land for free. There are certainly economic benefits. There is the opportunity to create housing for members of the congregation that need housing. There's the opportunity to create housing for staff that need housing. We currently have 45 congregations across Southern California that are on the interest list. We've met groups that are working on similar projects in the East Coast, in the Midwest, but it's relatively new. But it's attracted just a tremendous amount of attention and hope.
It takes an army of advocates in order to create the change needed, in order to get policies and projects passed. So we were thinking, how do we get that army, of God's people working together? We felt like God led us to write a grant for a liaison coordinator, and we hired Bert Newton, who's amazing. He is brilliant and wise and humble, a Mennonite pastor who has been part of our organization really for the last 20 years. He now has 20 churches all in relationship with our organization, with liaison members within those churches to begin to create a team of people within their congregation that can come out and have that rapid response when we need to get 100 people to show up at the city council.
My name is Brita Pinkston, and I am a resident of Pasadena for 37 years. I am a pastor at the Pasadena Foursquare Church. What led Foursquare to become a part of MHCH and have a liaison really comes down to relationship. It was through years of knowing Jill, Anthony, myself, being a part of things, and then slowly bringing that into our church community.
I think of Pastor Brita as a pastor of pastors. She is an example to other pastors. She is fearless and yet humble. I love the way she is able to see into the hearts of her congregation and see their gifts, see their ability to use their talents and to draw those out, be it art, be it singing.
So to tell you about our event this weekend, I am so excited. Our event is called Living Pasadena. Living Pasadena comes from this idea that we want a hospitable, affordable, accessible Pasadena for all. And that means that we want to be welcoming one another. It's not just one grouping, one type, but we recognize that every single person has something that they contribute, and we need everybody. We're going to have a lot of people sharing housing stories. We're going to have people talking about their experiences, their lives. We're going to talk about solution-based activities that they can join, signing things, how to write a letter, how to go and speak in front of the city council. We want to give practical ways for people to walk away to say, I learned more about what it means to be involved. If you are considering becoming a liaison with MHCH, first of all, I hope you are. It's a great lifeline when you don't know, when big things come up, when you don't understand some of the policy or some of the changes in the government. For us, it's been huge because our liaison has been able to have that resource, those relationships. They're already doing things like going at City Hall, and we can just show up and be a part. The absolute most important thing I can do is to love God with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love my neighbor as myself.
The vision of our city, and this literally is the vision of our city, every Pasadenan has the right to decent, safe, and affordable housing. That's a beautiful vision. It's a vision that we see in the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and also bring it all back to the Bible. That's
Everyone meet their own vine and fig tree.
Everyone meet their own vine and fig tree. God's vision is for everybody to be housed, to be safe, and to live with dignity.
We weep for the 23,000 people on the Section 8 waiting list that opens only once every few years for a few weeks. We weep for the 700 students in our school district that are counted as homeless. We weep for the 19%, that's 1 in 5, 19% of our Pasadena City College students that are experiencing homelessness.
So many churches are already in a place of compassion. They have food pantries. They have ways of reaching out to those in need. But if you start imagining how they can build upon that compassion and build upon those existing programs, how can they start getting signatures for petitions to get housing so people that come to those pantries can all start signing?
Affordable housing brings investment, well-paying jobs, and millions of dollars into our communities. It brings beauty. It brings housing for those who have no home or pay way too much. It's better for business. It's better for the environment.
How do you help people in a church imagine what's in their backyard? You know, could a church start imagining their parking lots, you know, and how they can have safe parking? Could a church start imagining excess land and how they could actually bring some income to the church from that and have new neighbors that they can love?
We believe it's possible to correct laws so that churches are allowed to have safe parking and tiny shelters on their properties and other sites.
If you have a heart and a desire to make a difference and you're willing and curious, we invite you to explore that with us, you know, and imagine how your church has definitely a unique role to play in our community.
Everyone neath their vine and fig tree will live in peace and unafraid. And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more. And into plowshares turn their swords, nations shall learn war no more.